This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Ewan Jansen. This show is live. It's broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube right now with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Today we look at the threat posed by the Ebola virus on the continent and also the start of the spread of this deadly disease. Top performers in business were honoured here in South Africa last night, and it is official. South Africa is now home to the world's best brandy. Bet you didn't know that. First though, Katrine Milan gives us a look at today's news.
Well, hello and welcome to Newsroom. I'm Katrine Milan, and let's take a look at the news-making headlines this morning. The National Employers Association of South Africa, NIASA, which represents 3,000 employees in the metal sector, has not accepted a deal with Trade Union Solidarity and the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa to bring an end to the 4-week strike in the metal sector to an end. The National Union of Metal Workers yesterday secured a 10% increase for its lowest paid members for the next 3 years. According to NIASA, the deal is simply unaffordable for smaller companies, and it plans to challenge the agreement. NUMSA workers are expected to start returning to work this morning. Authorities in Lagos, Nigeria have shut down and quarantined the hospital in which a man died of Ebola. It was the first recorded case of the highly infectious disease in Africa's most populous country. The Ebola outbreak has killed more than 600 people across Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone since February. Israel hit targets in the Gaza Strip last night, ending hopes for an end to 22 days of fighting. 2 airstrikes which hit the compound of Gaza City's main hospital and a nearby park, killing 10 children and wounding 46. The resumption of airstrikes followed a televised address last night by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Then South Africa are currently fourth on the medal standings at the Commonwealth Games in Scotland with 9 golds, 7 silver and 8 bronze medals. Australia are topping the standings with 30 gold, followed by England on 27 gold medals and Scotland third with 13 gold medals. Yesterday, South Africa's star duo Cameron van den Berg and Chad le Clos claimed 2 gold medals in the pool. Fanie van der Merwe won gold for South Africa in the 100-meter T37 on the second night of the athletics, and South Africa's lawn bowlers did it again, winning their 3rd gold medal. Then the Proteas secured a historic win in the second test against Sri Lanka in Colombo yesterday, sealing 1-0 series win. The victory propelled South Africa to the top of World Test rankings ahead of Australia. It was the first series win in Sri Lanka since 1993, when they first toured the country and defeated the host 1-0. Remember, all these top stories are available on our Facebook page. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Given, back to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Katrine. Now, this year alone, the highly contagious Ebola virus has claimed nearly 700 lives in Liberia, Guinea and Sierra Leone. It's now been described as one of the most deadly diseases in the world, and with no known cure, more and more West African countries are battling to deal with what the World Health Organization is calling the largest outbreak ever recorded of the virus. Joining us now from the National Institute of Communicable Diseases to talk about the deadly virus is Professor Janusz Paweszka. Very good morning to you, sir. And thank you.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Very worrying, the statistics. It seems to be something that's on the increase with no cure. How are African governments and aid groups trying to stop the spread of this deadly disease?
There's a number of measures put in place. All these measures are coordinated by WHO. There's also a number of other international health organizations involved, including Doctors Without Borders from different countries and also Red Cross. These efforts obviously require tremendous coordination because there's challenging and very charging and developing situations from day to day. The numbers will change, the number of cases will change from day to day. So these measures are in place, though the situation appears not to be under the control to the extent we wish. However, one has to stress that this deadliest outbreak of Ebola is occurring in one of the poorest countries in the region, where health systems are already fragile.
I want to bring it back to the spread of the disease and the threat of the spread. It's not an airborne disease. What are the threats of this disease spreading to other countries? We've seen it's just reached Nigeria. What about the spread of further south countries like South Africa, Zimbabwe, and so forth?
The fear is understandable because of the very, very severe manifestation, the clinical manifestation. However, Ebola is not a flu virus. It doesn't really spread very, very easy. It requires a very, very direct contact, person-to-person contact. Usually, the first case starts with an exposure to an animal in the forest. And then the index case spreads the disease in the family members or in a hospital to the healthcare workers. Yeah. So it almost requires a direct inoculation. So very, very close physical contact with a sick person or dead person or dead animal or sick animal without protection. That's how it happens.
What are the symptoms that everyday citizens should be on the lookout for? I read a little bit earlier today that it looks a lot like other diseases initially.
It does, and this is a problem for clinicians because the symptoms are unspecific. For example, if you had a fever and headache this morning, you wouldn't think about Ebola because you were not there.
Yeah.
So obviously the symptoms and the clinical history has to be put into the context where people are living, what they're doing on a daily basis, and so on and so forth. But the symptoms starts with fever, headache, muscle pain, joint pain, chest pain. And
it's a lot like malaria in the initial stages.
It is. That's why initially doctors are treating these patients with antimalarial drugs and antibiotics. And if there is no response and there is evidence that these people could be infected or they were exposed to the sick people and they're coming from these regions of Africa, obviously they are isolated and then the treatment is provided. But then the symptoms suddenly, very abrupt, developed into more severe symptoms, including severe bleeding and neurological disorders, vomiting, diarrhea, severe chest pain, bleeding from almost everywhere, bleeding from mouth, bleeding from nose, bleeding also from other places. So obviously these manifestations make people feared.
I want to talk about that fear, and I want to talk about the panic that comes with it. We see now in West Africa that some citizens are targeting medical professionals, doctors and other medical workers for the spread of this disease because they say that medical workers are the ones, the intermediaries who spread the disease. Is there a threat of that kind of panic?
This is a very, very unfortunate perception. Unfortunately, many health front workers are very often in hostile situations. It's difficult to understand where from these perceptions are coming.
Yeah.
Very often health workers, including many internationals who are deployed in these countries, are accused of spreading. Obviously, this is not the case. These people are going there to help. But unfortunately, it's not much that we can do at the moment because people who are sick, they're isolated. Obviously, they are provided the treatment, but the treatment is symptomatic. If somebody has a diarrhea, we try to stop it. If somebody has a fever, we try to stop it.
Yeah.
Severe pain, we try to stop it. But there's no specific treatment. There's no specific vaccines.
There's no cure for this disease.
This
brings me there to the next question I want to ask you is, what makes this virus then so deadly and so difficult to deal with? And what are the fatality rates that we deal with? If you contract it, what is the chance of you surviving?
Unfortunately, infection with this specific species of Ebola virus, because there are different Ebola viruses. The outbreak, which is now going on in West Africa, is caused by the most fatal strain of Ebola virus, Ebola Zaire. And infection with this virus is equal a death penalty, almost, because the case fatality rate can reach up to 90%. 90%, and that was in previous outbreak. Now, the case fatality rate during this outbreak, it varies between 50 to 70%. But these numbers will change because the numbers which are provided now to the public are based on the suspect cases, probable cases, and the confirmed cases. So when eventually the outbreak will be fully controlled and more lab results will come and will be analyzed, then we will know what was the outcome of these outbreaks in terms of the case fatality rate. Unfortunately, the virus replicates very, very quick in the body and hampers the immune responses. The person is not capable of responding in time. The virus replicates to very, very high concentration. For example, in the blood or in some targeted organs, like, for example, liver, spleen, and lymph nodes, we're talking about millions, if not billions, of viral particles per gram of tissue.
Wow, and it spreads that fast as well then?
The virus has tropism to almost each tissues, but particularly to liver and spleen, and those tissues are very, very important in terms of responding to infectious agents. And obviously there is a severe loss of blood and fluids, which actually brings the heart difficult to pump enough oxygen and nutrition to the organs, and eventually there is a shock and multi-organ failure and death.
Thank you very much for joining us today and clearing it up today, Professor. That's Professor Janusz Paweszka, who is from the National Institute for Communicable Diseases here in South Africa. So no, you should not be too concerned at the moment. Professor, you wanted to say something before?
Just to say maybe one sentence, that we are prepared, and obviously South Africa is on the alert. We do have the only maximum security laboratory in African continent, biosafety level 4. We do have trained staff. We've got experts in infections control. We do many experts in epidemiology and ecology of Ebola viruses. As a matter of fact, we do some endemic viruses which belong to viral hemorrhagic fevers, like Rift Valley fever, Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever. Those infections are dealt in South Africa almost on a daily basis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. So don't have to be too alarmed at the moment about the spread of the disease. It spreads through bodily fluids. It's not airborne, and therefore that makes it a little bit easier to contain. Just to recap, the latest is that authorities in Nigeria have isolated and quarantined a Lagos hospital where an Ebola victim died. This was the first recorded case of the highly infectious disease in Africa's most populous country. Some hospital staff who were in close contact with the victim have been isolated, and 59 other people are now being monitored. The Ebola outbreak has killed more than 600 people across Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone since February. The official number now stands at 672 deaths. Let's take a quick look at the front pages of the World this morning. Of course, Ebola truly becoming a worldwide concern. There you have your French newspapers. This one, Le Monde, reporting on the deadly Ebola virus as concerns mount, with authorities in Nigeria, Lagos in particular, shutting down and quarantining a hospital in which a man died of the deadly disease. Your Nigerian newspaper, the Vanguard, however, not reporting on the incident, but rather another suicide bombing attack in the ancient city of Kano. Here you also have a beautiful picture of Nigeria's Blessing Okagbare, who won the women's 100-meter athletics event. Beautiful picture on the front page of The Independent as Muslims across the world came together to mark Eid al-Fitr. Then even the royals, well, they are enjoying every moment of the 20th Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland. The Scots, yes, Her Majesty's loyal subjects, as they call them in the United Kingdom. Let's take a quick look at what you are talking about on social media. Of course, very concerning as around Ebola virus and the spread of the Ebola virus. Tubby Sile says, I think South Africa should also close borders to prevent this Ebola virus. I think that is a little bit short-sighted, my dear. We simply can't close our borders because of disease. New Innovation. We'll have New Innovation shortly in studio to talk to us about what you can do and what the expectation is. Wash your hands and avoid all unnecessary contacts. Preventing Ebola, that's of course how you can protect yourself. Bodily fluids, that's how you spread this disease. Tepo Mokwele says, for those who feast on fruit bats, cooking them thoroughly kills the Ebola virus. Hashtag BBC. That's yes, the chicken of the cave, as they call it, the fruit bat. Sophia Santos says, never touching anyone again because of Ebola. Sophia, that is also not going to work. You can't lock yourself out. You just have to wash your hands and protect yourself from interchanging bodily fluids. Laura O'Neill says, South Africa would not survive an Ebola virus outbreak. Laura, you are short-sighted, my dear. We've just been told by the good professor here that we have the best facilities on the continent to contain this kind of disease. So don't knock us. We're doing okay. Now, just before we go to a break, let's look at last night's performance in the pool at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland. South Africa's star duo Cameron van der Berg and Chad le Clos both claimed 2 gold medals.
Welcome to our Friday edition of A View from the House, coming to you live from Parliament. My name is Asanda Mbeche. President Jacob Zuma officially opens the National House of Traditional Leaders and calls on traditional leaders to work closely with elected public representatives.
South Africa is a much better place to live in than it was before 1994. Many of our traditional leaders can attest to that fact, having seen improvements.
A View from the House, weekdays at 2:30 on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom here on SABC News. New Innovation is a digital platform that focuses on amplifying innovation and good news from across the African continent. Along with the new innovations, the platform highlights selfless actions by individuals, companies and governments on the continent as well. Every month, we are joined by the team from New Innovation to get the latest on the innovative news happening on the continent. We are joined today by the founder, Katu and Nwako, joining us this morning. Good morning, guys. Thank you for being here with us again.
Good morning, Evan. Good.
Katu, we've just did a whole segment on the Ebola virus and the concerns around the Ebola virus. You guys at New Innovation, you interact with Africa, West, East, South, North.
Yeah.
How have you guys been looking at this story?
It is viral on Twitter. Obviously viral on the soils and the ground. But I think most importantly, we're saying as Africa in this information age, digital age, we need to start communicating even better. I don't think the governments of Africa are failing. It's just that communication is just not enough. If you look at some of the causes of that, it's the congestion in a highly densely populated areas. So we're saying as the digital people, digital age, let us start communicating much more differently. I mean, let's go viral on the same type of stuff that we're doing on Bring Back Our Girls. But let us now start saying how best can we communicate out there. Yeah.
I saw that you're running some tweets about what people can do to avoid the spread of disease, but this is just the normal stuff. You're supposed to wash your hands a couple of times every day.
Yes.
You're supposed to not exchange bodily fluids with people.
That you don't know.
These are things that are supposed to be simple.
Yeah, and I think one of the major things is that we're trying to amplify good messages of hope, to say, stop faffing around. You need to be very serious about your health and all that and more. So I hope people are going to start washing their hands after realizing that you can actually contract Ebola just by not washing your hands, and stop touching things that are dead, carcasses and all that and more.
Stay away from the chicken of the cave, the fruit bat. Now, Nwaka, let's move on and let's start talking a little bit about what you guys are really here to talk about, and that's innovation on the continent. It's really, we are setting ourselves up for the African continent, and I see solar-powered tablets are in focus with you guys. Just tell us a little bit how this is going to facilitate mobile computing.
I think we live in a time where, in as much as we're in a digital age, in Africa, electricity is still an issue. We're all victims of load shedding. And these guys came up with solar-powered tablets. So even when you are without electricity, you're able to put your tablet out there and still have access to all the information that's happening globally. So that's what...
Katsu, tell us a little bit about the solar-powered tablet and how do you see this making an impact on the continent?
The good thing is that it was invented by young people out in PE. That is the most, for me, that's the highlight.
Okay, so this is a South African, completely South African...
It's a completely South African product. So most importantly, those two, the Sibanda guy and the lady. So the tablet in itself, it's not about it being phenomenal, but it is about it being functional. That's what convenience. That's what we're looking for.
Functionality and convenience. That's what it's all about.
I mean, we've got a series that we've recently started called Mzansi Innovators, where we're calling all the innovators that have got innovations that they need the world to know about, to say, come, let's start talking about it, so that we can get to the rest of the world knowing what kind of innovations that we're doing in Africa. There's a young man called Hassan. He's a Syrian, but he's based in South Africa. He's saying running innovation in Africa, it's quite exciting because it's a necessity. You are bringing up solutions that will be taken up and work on a daily basis. He's invented something that we call the busy box, if we are to quickly look at that. And it's this type of stuff that we're saying with this series called Mzansi Innovators, which you'll find on a weekly basis. We've got things that we want to let the rest of the world get to know about.
Well, okay, if I can take this a little bit further, what use, we talk about solar-powered iPads without Wi-Fi. What use is it if you don't have Wi-Fi? And tell us about this Business Quick Connect that you guys have been interacting with and how they are taking this forward onto the continent.
Sure. Quick Connect has two elements to their business. On the one hand, when you go to concerts, you know that network there gets congested and it's difficult for people to then communicate what's happening on stage. So he's found a way to bring Wi-Fi onto stadiums and all these big events so that people can be connected right there and then. But on the other hand, what James and his partner has done is that they're going around into townships and rural communities and helping those with internet cafes there be able to also have Wi-Fi and install it in some of the households for free, because they're making money on the one hand.
And this is something that should be extended or continent-wide, really.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they've partnered up with the Hookup Dinner, Lebu and them. I know for a fact, and I hope it's not too much in confidence, that they're expanding in Africa. They've just recently launched in Polokwane, and they're going bigger and better. So the same type of concept of collaborative innovation, it's actually that which Africa needs going forward. We need not to restrict ourselves to just saying we are South Africans, but let us spread and share our innovations across the rest of the continent.
It's about innovating, I think. Setting ourselves free on the continent is about innovating and making technology work for us. Tell us about this man from the University of the lecturer at University of Pretoria that created what's called a busy box and how this works. I'm quite excited because I think I want to put that at my house.
Hassan is actually a son of a diplomat. He's been all over the country. He's 22, if I'm not mistaken, by now. But he has invented stuff that is so much exciting. It is a movie theater by night and a classroom by day. Now think about it. All those cinemas, the entire day, they are just sitting empty. But if you actually convert it in that fashion, you can actually have something that young people that are not exposed to cinemas can actually start using it much more successfully in that fashion. And he is currently doing his master's in project management in engineering. So you can imagine that it's not only for the geeks, there's this innovative stuff, but it's about bringing something that is functional into the rest of the world. But thanks to the Innovation Hub, they're doing a very good job. There's a lot more of this innovations that are coming up. You should just watch the space, Evan.
No. Finally, before we wrap it, the Botswana government are making bold strides in keeping up with other countries in Africa. Tell us a little bit, Marco, about what they're doing and then cut to, in conclusion, how they're going about it.
Sure.
What Botswana has done, as you know, Wi-Fi, innovation, all that stuff, you start with the policies before you can even implement these things in the country. So they've just passed the laws where they can have budgets for innovation. So they've opened 2 universities that allow for things like technology, engineering, science, innovation to take the forefront of what learners are doing now. So people are now learning more about innovation and engineering rather than just the old school medical.
They've got a national innovation fund that the government is putting forward. That in itself is innovative, yeah?
Yeah, it is. I think that's very important for African governments to take such strides going forward, because innovators need that particular support. Remember that innovators do not always have the money to actually sponsor their own innovations. Yeah. So when a government puts up such a fund, it's quite exciting, similarly to what the government of South Africa has done. So Rwanda is also doing it. Uganda has got something coming up. Kenya is doing something. So there's something great happening.
Well, guys, thank you very much for coming in and giving us a heads up what's happening this month. We look forward to when you come next month to give us another look at how Africa is innovating and how Africa is using technology to move into the 21st century. It is the African century after all.
Thank you. Well done on the air.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's our birthday week. We're going to we'll talk about that a little bit later in the week. But thank you, guys. That's innovation, giving us a little heads up as to what's happening on the continent as far as innovation is concerned. If you've got anything that you want to send it to at SABC Newsroom. We'll send it on to the guys and we'll get them to interact with you or with us or with the show, depending on what kind of quality of contribution it is. Let's take a look at what you're talking about on social media at the moment. Of course, there we go. Vele talks about cricket. South Africa wins the series 1-0 after they drew against Sri Lanka. Proudly South African back on the top of the world. Yes, you could work in the news business. Koyana says, they say one more over, maybe. That was yesterday. It was very tough at the end there. Sean talks about another epic test match. Well done, SA Cricket boys. Top effort again and reclaim the top spot in the world. What great fighting spirit. Yes, it was in difficult conditions. SA made me proud today. Commonwealth Games, Cricket SA. Chocolate fudge, that's what she says. Everybody loves a winner. That's right. Siyabonga talks about the matches drawn and move back to number 1. Donkey. I think that is what all South Africans will be saying. Thank you, Donkey. We are happy that we are back where we belong. Number 1 in the world, in cricket at least. Test cricket, that is. Let's take a quick look at what's happening on our Facebook page now today. Well, there you will see that 2 men will appear in the Sasolburg Magistrates Court in the Northern Free State in connection with the disappearance of 2 Denisville boys. You'll also see that fighting in the area of the downed Malaysian Airlines flight in eastern Ukraine continues, despite a Security Council resolution calling for safe and unrestricted access to this crash site. And that the gold rush continues for Team South Africa at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games. Last night, gold for Fani van der Merwe and silver for Charles de Toit in the 100 metres T37. That was the South African highlight on the second night of athletics at the Games. Don't forget, you can find all of these stories and more on our Newsroom Facebook page. That's where it happens. Then today, looking back in history, 33 years ago, the stuff of fairy tales, or so they hoped at the time. Britain's Prince Charles married Lady Diana Spencer in a wedding that was labelled the wedding of the century. Outside, on a hot summer's day, thousands held street parties. Do you remember where you were on this day? I don't. Let's take a look back.
The procession of the bride begins, and the groom and his two supporters make their way with a longing look westward to the steps of the dais under the dome. And she is not doing as so many royal brides have done. She is not throwing the veil back, so there is an air of mystery about her as she quietly walks. This takes this longest and happiest walk she will ever take.
Welcome back. You're with Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a look at the news-making headlines this morning. The National Employers Association of South Africa, NIASA, which represents 3,000 employers in the metal sector, has not accepted a deal with Trade Union Solidarity and the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa to bring the 4-week strike in the metal sector to an end. The National Union of Metal Workers yesterday secured a 10% increase for its lowest paid members for the next 3 years. According to NIASA, the deal is simply unaffordable for smaller companies and it plans to challenge the agreement. NUMSA workers are expected to start returning to work this morning. Authorities in Lagos, Nigeria have shut down and quarantined the hospital in which a man died of Ebola. It was the first recorded case of the highly infectious disease in Africa's most populous country. The Ebola outbreak has killed more than 600 people across Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone since February. Israel hit targets in the Gaza Strip last night, ending hopes for an end to 22 days of fighting. 2 airstrikes which hit the compound of Gaza City's main hospital and a nearby park, killing 10 children and wounding 46. The resumption of airstrikes followed a televised address last night by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. South Africa are currently fourth on the medal standings at the Commonwealth Games in Scotland with 9 gold, 7 silver and 8 bronze medals. Australia are topping the standings with 30 gold, followed by England on 27 gold medals and Scotland third with 13 gold medals. Yesterday, South Africa's star duo Cameron van den Berg and Chad le Clos claimed 2 gold medals in the pool. Fanie van der Merwe won gold for South Africa in the 100-meter T37 on the second night of athletics. And South Africa's lawn bowlers did it again, winning their 3rd gold medal. And then the Proteas secured a historic win in the second test against Sri Lanka in Colombo yesterday, sealing 1-0 series win. The victory propelled South Africa to the top of world test rankings ahead of Australia. It was their first series win in Sri Lanka since 1993 when they first toured the country and defeated the host 1-0. Remember, all these top stories are available on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. We're now crossing to Anine, who's standing by with some interesting business news.
Thank you, Katrine. South Africa's top young business talent was recognized at the 3rd annual Standard Bank Rising Stars Award that took place last night. The Rising Star program has been established for the purpose of celebrating and connecting people who have a capacity for achievement and success and who contribute in an inspirational manner to the country's future. Rising stars are individuals with tremendous promise and great talent who excel for reasons that go far beyond their technical abilities alone within the business sector. Now, 2 of these stars and last night's winners, Karen Robb and Adriana De Beer, join us in studio today. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Firstly, congratulations on winning last night. Karen, I think I'll start with you. Firstly, let's just go through the process. How are you entered into this and what sector are you from?
You entered through a process where somebody in your business nominates you. It starts out as an online assessment, and there they start whittling down the entrance into the top 8 and then finally into the top 5. And the award for the winner happened last night. I was in the banking and financial service sector, a very tough sector, a number of amazing South African businesses in that sector with some incredible people and some really tough competition.
Yeah. And the process, what type of questions were you asked with that kind of, observation?
Well, the interview process for the top 5 was a really tough process. It consisted of a case study, which you had an hour to prepare for, which you then had to present back, which really looked to measure your impact across all types of areas and the value chain within a business. The judges were incredibly tough, lots of hard questions, really digging into who you are and what you stand for and whether you meet the criteria to be a rising star.
Right, and then Adriana, you are from the energy and chemicals category, right? And you were a winner there last night. What do you think, can you explain to us some of the projects you've been working on that has actually made your work stood out?
There are several projects that I've been working on, but I think the Rising Star competition is not so much about projects, because if it was about projects, then my whole project team had to be here. I think what the Rising Star Awards wanted to achieve was to look at a holistic approach to an individual. So it's more than just the projects. They look at your business ethics. They looked at are you prepared to take risks, to what extent, how fast can you make decisions, can you think fast, can you think on your feet, excellence, do you do your work in excellence? So it's more than just the projects, I think.
Yes.
And I think that is what made the competition as tough, as Karen said as well.
Yes. There were also 11 different categories, and I think 5 finalists in every category, so that's like 55 finalists altogether. Did you have a chance to network with any of these people, to meet them?
I think Ariana and I actually met on judging day. We were interviewed at the same time as in different categories, so we spent a bit of time there together. And this morning we spent a bit of time. I think yesterday, meeting the finalists, both in my category, sitting next to a couple of them last night, I was really blown away by the amount of energy and passion that group of people have. And I think it's pretty incredible for an award like this to bring so many people from different sectors together and give us the opportunity to feed off each other's energy.
Yeah.
And I think going forward there will be more opportunity to network and get to know each other.
Yes. Yes, that's actually one thing about the awards, right, is that the process actually starts now. Can you tell us a bit more about that? What do you know, what's lined up for the next few months?
There is networking events. There will be some masterclasses, I think, that they have arranged for the category winners. But then there's also networking functions and events. And in October, there's the Rising Star Summit. Yes.
All right. And then do you think now, after winning this award, you would go to your workplace with a bit of a different mindset, maybe approach things differently?
I think as individuals, if we're true to ourselves, we're going to go back and we're still going to be exactly the same person that we are every day. I think with this award comes a level of responsibility. It's a responsibility to use our platform wisely. It's a responsibility to be authentic to the principles that we were awarded the award for. And it's a responsibility to give back and help other talented individuals get to where we're so lucky to be today.
Mm. And what do you think these awards actually mean for different business sectors?
I think it's a unique opportunity for the industry professionals to network with each other, and also to, personally, it was a good platform to benchmark yourself against the other young professionals out there, and to see, okay, how can I improve myself, and what can I learn, and how can I network more?
Yeah. And then, again, congratulations. And as the winners, just maybe to end off, what would your advice be to anyone actually aspiring to win an award like this?
My advice is find your passion. Find what it is that really excites you to get up and go and make that difference in any small way that you can. But find the passion.
I totally agree. Find your passion and then do it with excellence.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Evan, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Janine. Now, today we're going to end on a note where most South African men think that they're experts on. KWV's 12-year Barrel Select Brandy has been named Worldwide Best Brandy, winning the 2014 Worldwide Brandy Trophy Award at this year's prestigious International Wine and Spirit Competition Awards ceremony in London. Over 90 countries entered this year's IWSC competition, which was founded in 1969 and is widely considered the most prestigious independent competition on the planet. Now, Pieter de Bot, master distiller at KWV, says that to win Worldwide Best Brandy 2014 is the highest accolade and demonstrate their brandy team's commitment to innovation and quality. He joins us from Cape Town this morning. Pieter, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Yeben. It's actually Peter Hegarty here. I'm the head of strategy at KWV, so I've been asked to represent Pieter de Bod, who's still very busy in the brandy cellars this morning.
Oh, I hope he's not been drinking. It looks like my producer's been drinking because they're not giving me anybody's names today, so I apologize. Firstly, congratulations. I understand it's the second year in a row winning this title. Well, what does it mean to a local brand, this kind of achievement?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there are two major worldwide competitions. There is the ISC, the International Spirits Challenge, and the International Wine and Spirits Challenge. So they're the two big competitions. We won ISC last year with our KWV 15, and this year now we followed it up with the KWV 12. We're a relatively small player in the South African market. We're about 15% of the brandy market. So to win a global competition like this, it's the Olympics of our business. So to win a global competition like this for KWV is just phenomenal.
Now tell us what sets the KWV brandies apart from brandies around the world. I mean, it's one of those things that I think the French would think that they know how to do this for hundreds and hundreds of years before us.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the interesting things that we certainly want to raise awareness about, the quality of the products that we produce in South Africa. I mean, the standards to which we produce our brandy are better than anywhere else in the world, and that includes the famed Cognac region in France. In fact, the only thing that differentiates Cognac from South African brandy is the fact that the grapes are grown and picked and distilled in that small region in France.
Now tell us about the boost that this is for brandy locally and also for Brand SA.
Yeah, I mean, brandy for many years now has had an image problem in South Africa. I think South African drinkers are looking more towards international brands, particularly whiskies. So for us, this is a major boost, if you like, to the quality of our products and to the brand awareness and the fact that South African consumers can turn back now to brands like KWV and find out and enjoy why they are such superb products. On the international stage, obviously it's a much tougher proposition. South African brandies are popular on the African continent, but we're slowly penetrating in other markets around the world. In fact, last week we announced a fabulous new listing in Canada for our KWV 10-year-old. So it's happening. It will be a hard slog for us, but we're moving in the right direction. And it's a great boost for South African farmers as well, whom we work with very closely to produce these great products.
And tell us finally about affordability. This Barrel Select 12-year-old, that's now the best brand in the world. Me as a South African, how much will I pay for a bottle of this quality?
For you, Yibben, you can get this for a measly $250. And if you think that this is a pure pot still product, it's been aged in the barrel for 12 years, I think you'll agree with me that's a great bargain.
Some of my friends say at 5,000 Rand, a bottle of brandy or a bottle of whiskey is still a bargain. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. And congratulations again on this wonderful achievement of making the best brandy in the world.
Thank you, Yibben. It's been a pleasure.
Let's take a quick final look at what's happening on social media before we call it a day. Of course, at SABC Newsroom, we would love to interact with you. The NUMSA strike. Well, woke up to some real good news. The NUMSA strike is over. Hopefully, work will start to pick up gradually. Grateful, says Fit. Peter DeLange says, NUMSA strike lasted exactly 28 days. Planned or coincidence? Lawrence Krill says, tell us your salary, Mr. Jim. Mine is from hard work and entrepreneurial risk, not intimidation. Hashtag NUMSA. That's where we have to wrap it. Well, back at work again after the long strike. I think there's a whole lot of relief in South Africa because of that. Newsroom is broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights repeat at 2 in the afternoon with a complete rebroadcast the following morning, 5 a.m. We're also live on YouTube at that time with the whole show available on demand on our YouTube channel all of the time for you to watch at your leisure. This is SABC News. You have been watching Newsroom, where we just love it in the morning.